Gather round, y'all. I'd like to tell you a little story. Not really a story. I want to talk about something really important for this research paper, and that is the distinction between argument and report. So, argument versus report. This is something that is really important for the type of writing that we're doing in this particular essay. So, recall we're challenged to treat this as an argument as a journey, right? So we're not treating it as debate. A debate is where you're just trying to prove that your side is right. We're actually trying to work our way to greater understanding. So we're treating it as a journey where we're finding different bits of information from the different sources about this topic, and we're putting it together in a way to convey our perspective on whatever the topic is. So I want to read through this and I'll stop and elaborate on it as we go through, but let me go ahead and jump in. So, argument versus report. In conversation, we often use the word argument to mean something very specific, a heated disagreement among opposing sides. However, this is a very limited sense of the word. In academic settings, that's what we're in an academic setting, the word argument has a broader, less contentious definition. We use the word argument to mean opinion, position, point of view, claim, and so on. An argument is just a perspective we hold. It does not mean a heated disagreement among opposing sides. So, a kind of silly example of this is pineapple on pizza is very delicious. Now, in my classes, or at least in my face-to-face classes, I would often use this example um, to demonstrate this. Seemingly pretty silly example, but actually kind of controversial. I've learned over the semesters of my using this example. But pineapple on pizza is very delicious. So this is a perspective that somebody holds. It's an opinion about pineapple on pizza, right? This is a perspective someone holds about this topic. People may disagree with this perspective or be ambivalent about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean there needs to be a heated disagreement among the different perspectives, and it doesn't mean that we need to convince or persuade anyone that our opinion is correct. Some people like pineapple on their pizza, some people do not, and others may not have a preference, or perhaps their preference is conditional. So maybe pineapple on pizza sometimes is good, but other times it's not, right? Um, so I think a dangerous, not dangerous, but a misconception that we hold about the word argument means that there needs to be opposing forces butting heads, and ultimately we need to try to prove that we are right, what our perspective is right in that opposition, right? But as Miller and Jurassic talk about in that section we read a few days ago or last week, treating argument as debate does not make for good writing. And I can attest to that. I'm going to also agree with their assessment there. It doesn't make for good writing. Because a lot of times what ends up happening, the writer is not using writing as a mode of learning. They're just trying to prove that we're right. And so we're not, if a writer is just trying to support their thesis, they're just looking for evidence that is going to support it, right? And they'll exclude anything that might contradict or go against it. But when we treat argument as journey, on the other hand, we're opening ourselves up to perusing a wide range of different ideas, perspectives, sources, and ultimately we're trying to put the pieces together in such a way where we can come to a satisfactory conclusion, right? But again, we're not trying to persuade or convince our readers. We're just trying to show our readers why we hold this perspective, right? So let's continue here. As we continue our research and compose our essays, it's important that we understand the distinction between an argument and a report. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, which is the world's best dictionary, look it up, the definition of argument is a connected series of statements or reasons intended to establish a position. If the information doesn't establish a position, then it is not an argument. So in many cases, it might be what's called a report. So what is a report? Let's check that out. A report is simply a presentation of facts, evidence, or information. It doesn't indicate how we should feel about or interpret the information. There is no opinion or position offered. So recall, an argument is going to be an opinion, position, point of view, claim, right? A report is not. It's just going to be a presentation of the information. So here's the evidence, but the writer doesn't indicate how the reader should feel about it or what we should do about it, right? So an example of this, kind of seemingly silly example, Saturday comes after Friday and before Sunday. Most people do not work on Saturday or Sunday. This is a report because it is simply a presentation of the facts about Saturday. The writer doesn't indicate how we should interpret those facts. Now, most of you are probably already adding your own interpretation of this, and we'll get to that in a second. But this right here, what we have in this example is just the facts, right? It's just the information. The writer doesn't indicate how we should feel about Saturday or what this information means. And that takes us to argument. An argument, on the other hand, does indicate how we should feel about and or interpret the information. An opinion or position is offered in some way. So taking that same idea of Saturday, and we're kind of repurposing it a little bit. So an example, because Saturday is the first day of the weekend, and most people don't need to work that day or the day after, Saturday is the best day of the week. So this right here, all of this stuff in the kind of that top line, essentially this information, it's reworded of course, but it's essentially that information. So those are the facts, the information about it. The argument part is where we take it a step further and make an assessment about this information. So because of this information, Saturday is the best day of the week. Now this is an argument because it indicates how we should feel about and or interpret the facts. Because of these facts, we should think or feel this way, right? Now most people probably would agree with this argument, right? It's a pretty reasonable argument if you ask me. But people who maybe work on the weekends might not view Saturday the same way, and so therefore they would have a different interpretation of the facts, right? But even still, they could say, well, because I don't work Tuesday and Wednesday, Tuesday is actually the best day of the week. Now, of course, most people do work Tuesdays or Wednesdays, right? And so that their assessment might be different. But we want to offer that, take that a step farther and offer a way to understand the information. Keep in mind, strong and effective arguments are based on solid and credible facts, evidence, and information. A report only presents the facts, evidence, and information. An argument will indeed present facts, evidence, and information, but it will also indicate how we should interpret and think or feel about the facts, evidence, and information. So that's really important to keep in mind. Good arguments, I think there is a definite distinction between a good argument and a bad argument. Good arguments are based on good quality information, right? If the information is not good quality, or if the information is not there, maybe that's made up, then the argument itself is not going to be good. The opinion itself is not going to be good. But if the information is there and it's good quality information, and the writer is analyzing it in such a way where they're demonstrating critical thinking and whatnot, then the argument itself is going to be stronger. Now, this is a really shortened way of thinking about a good argument, kind of like just in a sentence. But ultimately, this is what your essay should do, but it's going to be much longer, right? Your essay is going to be longer than a single sentence. But this could be kind of like a thesis statement, right? So based on these facts, evidence, and information, so whatever that is, we should feel or do whatever because of these values, the things that we hold to be important, or because of these consequences, the things that could happen, right? So that's ultimately what you're kind of striving for in this research paper. But again, we want to make sure that it is not simply a report, okay? Don't just look up a bunch of information about some disease you're researching and then just say, here's what causes cancer. That's just a report. It's not offering an opinion about it, right? We want to make sure that it is an argument, okay? So whatever it is, whatever your topic is, make sure that you are offering your understanding, your interpretation, your indicating how you're interpreting the information, putting it together. And then again, remember, we're not trying to persuade or convince our readers. We're just trying to take our readers on this journey, right? So based on all this information, here's what I think and why I think that. And then if it is a good argument, then your reader is more likely to hear it out, right? And they can make up their mind for themselves. Okay, so that is the distinction between an argument and a report. We are striving for argument, but again, an argument doesn't mean that you're trying to convince or persuade. It doesn't mean that it has to be a controversial issue. It could just be explaining your interpretation of the information that you found on that topic, right? So I hope this clarifies things. If you have any questions, you can shoot me a message on Canvas. I'm happy to respond. Otherwise, happy researching, happy writing. I'm looking forward to reading your first drafts and the second drafts and the polished drafts. So, all right, take care, everyone.